All right, a 16-team playoff has been discussed this week at Big Ten Media Days. Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith told ESPN the proposal for 16, quote, just seems to be out there, and, quote, you can't ignore it. Jason, how often would you expect BYU to be in a 16-team playoff? Should it go that direction?
First of all, I love how it was always 12. 12 is the number. Now all of a sudden, like 12. Who cares about 12? It's all about 16. This is an interesting question because the more I thought about it, my answer started to sway. And look, my initial reaction was, because we were having this conversation yesterday, and you said, how often would you expect, would it be crazy for BYU to be in the college football playoff under a 16-team format once in 10 years? And when you said that, I thought, well, no, of course not. I'm like, in fact, I don't think it's insane to think once every 5 years, BYU could be in that situation. And look, and maybe I'm looking at recency bias, and because I think we all have a tendency to do that. But just in the last 2 years, BYU would have finished in the top 16. So why would we think that once in 5 years would be so crazy? Certainly, once in 10 years, I think, is absolutely an achievable goal. Is once in every 5 an aggressive goal or an aggressive expectation? Probably, but I don't think it's crazy when you look at the fact that in 20 and 21, if we were in a 16-team format, BYU finished inside the top 16. So I don't think it is this outlandish statement that people would scoff at and say that has no chance of happening.
Yeah, and once in every 5 would be awesome. I would love that. And you're right, the last 2 years have been special in terms of what BYU's been able to do, which is be 10-2 or 10-1 at the end of the regular season. Again, before you at us, it's got to be at the end of the regular season, not the final poll. And we're using AP because the college football playoff poll doesn't, well, they go end of regular season, right, and championship games. So, yes, once every 5 feels a little aggressive, but I also wonder, too, okay, in the Big 12, how do things change? Like, what's BYU like? Can BYU go 10-2 or better in the Big 12 in the regular season once every 5 years? That's the question.
And that 10 is important.
That 10 is important because there's no single-digit win BYU team that is in the top 25 even at the end of regular seasons or through the 2 WAC championships, right? 96-98. Of course, the 96 team was. But our stat of the day tells us a little bit about how many times BYU's been in the top 16 in a long time. Hit it.
It's the BYU Sports Nation stat of the day.
Okay, BYU's finished the regular season inside the AP top 16 6 times since 1985. 6 times. Okay, 21 and 20 you mentioned, 09, 15th, 96, 5th, and 90, 13th, and 85, 9th. We're talking about 6 times. Let's say the playoff had been 16, right? And then here's the other thing that complicates this conversation. AQs, automatic qualifiers. If AQs are happening, and let's say, so when Utah plays in the 04 Fiesta, the Big East champ is Pitt, and they're ranked like 19th. They're not good. What if that happens with a conference? And it wouldn't happen with the Big Ten or the SEC. What if it happens with the Pac-10, if you will, or whatever they are?
The Pac-2.
Or even the Big 12. Like, maybe you want it because then you're the next team in there. But that could affect things. Is a G5 given automatic access like it kind of has been in the BCS and Year 6 era for a while? That all complicates it too, because then maybe you're 15th, but sorry, the last 2 teams are out because you weren't an AQ one in there, ... I would hope BYU would get in there once every 5 years. Would be awesome, because that's a team that you're talking about that's like pretty stinking good for BYU.
Absolutely.
Standards. To be 10-2 or better. Last year, BYU would have been in it, like you mentioned. 2020, unique season, BYU's in position, which is great. We hope that's the new norm, and that this sort of on-ramp of tougher independent scheduling, despite my clamor for not doing it, will prepare BYU to be in a better spot in the Big 12 moving forward, should the playoff get to that point. Now, if it gets to that point, that'd be fun. Are you in favor of a 16-team playoff, by the way?
Yeah.
Because it does dilute the regular season somewhat.
It does, but
it enhances the postseason.
At the end of the day, as I don't know if you've been following things, but money is kind of an important part of this discussion.
Sorry, what?
And if they go to, again, like I said, we all thought there's no chance they're going to get any more than 12. So if we can just get to 12, things will be good. But now all of a sudden 12 is so last year.
And 12 would be tough for BYU. You got to go 11-1, and then you probably need to win the conference championship.
Look, I am definitely in favor of playoff expansion, and if 16 is an option, I don't have a problem with it. I still think that it allows it to be special enough. It's not like the current bowl system where everybody has a bowl game.
Just an exhibition.
Bowl games are not special anymore. They're just not.
It's just a non-conference game.
Yes, exactly. So I'm in favor of it.
Location.
The point you brought up about the AQs, though, is really, really important. And it's part of the criteria that we just don't know about.
Yeah.
We certainly expect there to be AQs in the scenario. I just can't imagine the SEC and the Big Ten not making sure that there are certain qualifiers that get multiple teams in. Now, if there are if you have a conference that has multiple AQs, that's when you really get into a problem.
Oh, if they're doing division champs instead of just conference champs?
Yeah. So
because of size.
Because of size,
okay.
then you're in trouble. But because we see this in the NFL all the time, where when you win a division, if your division is horrible, but you win the division, you're leapfrogging over somebody who had a better record than you and a better season than you to get into the postseason.
You're hosting a wild card game against a better team.
And so you would see that type of thing playing out where you have some AQs that maybe aren't as good as other teams that didn't qualify for the AQ.
So maybe AQ shouldn't be in it.
Well, but I just don't see any scenario where they're going to sign off on it without AQs. And in all likelihood, probably.
Who are you referring to?
The SEC and the Big Ten.
I think they're going to be just fine either way.
I do, but I think they're going to want. I'm going to want a guarantee. That's what they're going to want.
They don't need a guarantee. They'll just be in it. Because they'll have.
But they're going to stack the deck. Whether they know they're going to be in it, they're going to make sure that there is in writing that they're going to get in regardless.
And they can control exactly how this goes. The Big Ten and the SEC are the most powerful players in the college football conversation. Okay, back to Brigham Young. So if in the Big 12, BYU enters the Big 12, how often do you feel like BYU is going 10-2 or better? You're hoping it's once every 5 years?
Yeah, you're hoping that it's at least once every 5 years. That seems to me. Again, it's an aggressive expectation, but based off
we're not talking goal, we're talking expectation.
Yes,
goal is every year.
Based off of the trajectory, I think this is what this program is trying to get to. So if you can be in this once every 5 years in this situation, I think you're in a really, really good spot. And certainly once every 10 years, the expectation would be to be in a college football playoff game.
Well, of 16 teams?
Of 16.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once every 10 years.
No.
Once every 10 years in a 16-team format, absolutely, that would be an expectation.
Once every 10 years. Yes.
For sure.
That's a fair thing. We only have one season all time that we can really look at to know whether BYU can hang with that type of schedule.
Right.
It was last year.
Yeah, you're right.
It was last year. And BYU totally did, which is exciting. So you're talking about trajectory. Yes, it's not where you've been, it's where you're going.
Right.
And that's exciting. Next year certainly won't be what the last 2 years and this year is. It's going to be a new challenge for BYU, being in the Big 12, losing a lot of big pieces. But the hope is that BYU can replenish and then in 2024 get after it and see where we're at. And maybe 25, BYU is competing for a conference championship. Maybe 24, I don't know. But it's exciting because now BYU has access to something it has not had.
Yeah.
We've had to essentially for a decade plus, Jason, explain to people BYU has no automatic access to any New Year's Six anything. They have to out at large SEC and Big Ten teams essentially, and that's been difficult. BYU was probably a foot away from that last year from Oklahoma State should they score against Baylor in the Big 12 title game, perhaps being in a New Year's Six game. I mean, they were that close. And if you don't lose to Boise State at home, maybe you're in there. Maybe you out at large Oklahoma State. Probably not. But I'm excited to see if it gets to a 16-team playoff. BYU needs to be in that thing every so often.